everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday. I'm Liz Frerichs, and this is my husband, Evan.
Good morning. Welcome to the show.
We're so glad that you guys are with us on this super awesome Wednesday. And if you're joining us for the first time this week, we are talking about worldviews. It's our worldview week, kind of laying out our personal worldview and sort of the underpinnings of this show. So
yeah, it's been interesting. On Monday we talked about, well, we think it's interesting because it's our worldview. On Monday we talked about faith and calm and how do you know what you know what you think you know. And yesterday we talked about all truth is God's truth. And today we're going to talk about why do we talk about Tai Chi so much?
Yes, this is a question that we have gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Because, one of the big problems is Tai Chi, at least coming from a Christian perspective, Tai Chi is kind of Eastern mysticism. I don't know, does it fall into mysticism or Buddhism or somewhere in there? It's one of the kind of Eastern religions. Like you talk about the yin and the yang and the full and the empty. So those are definitely concepts that come through in Tai Chi.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people that have a concern with Tai Chi or yoga or any of those things, they're worried that you get a little bit off track sometimes. Like, your understanding of the Bible gets a little bit diluted. It's kind of like if you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be going 12 degrees northeast, and instead you end up going like 14 degrees northeast. Might be just a little bit off at the beginning, but once you get 100 miles down the road, like...
You're in a different state by that point.
Yeah. There's a big problem. So,
sure.
I think that's one of the main concerns that I've heard about Tai Chi and being into Tai Chi.
So what do you think of that? Valid concerns or...
Well, I think they can be valid concerns, but...
Absolutely.
If you are starting with the Bible... as we've been consistently talking about, if you've heard us talk about the CSCs, like, these are not concepts that we just were like, oh, these are super nice, let's pull these together and yay, I love this idea. It was like, these are concepts that are found in Scripture.
Yeah, I guess I should jump the gun a little bit there, but one of the other objections to Tai Chi or that amount of open-mindedness is, like, with our instructor, like, we love him and he's become a good friend, but he's definitely a spiritual, I don't know if I coined this term, spiritual relativity, where he doesn't really care and it all kind of just depends and there's no real solid answers there's no solid rocks of truth. Well, the only solid rock of truth is really that
there isn't
you
one.
Interpret your own reality however you want, and who am I to interfere with that? And so that's definitely a big problem. But like you were just getting ready to say, we're basing our reality on the Bible. And so in life, we've come across some stuff. Well, anyway, in life when
it's just like we were talking about yesterday with all truth is God's truth. Just because you find something that's true in a place like Tai Chi or yoga or anywhere. And as I said, there are some new age healing kinds of things that are considered new age because of the new age people embrace them. Like using essential oils. There's stuff that's very scientifically based when you look at it, but because it's considered new age, Christians a lot of the time kind of throw that out.
Yeah, I think the important part is the open mind, but with the
baloney grid.
The baloney grid or the Bible goggles, whatever you want to call it. But like and it's not to say that you come across something like Tai Chi and you just accept it wholesale.
Right.
We're going to talk about tomorrow, chew the meat, spit out the bones, and that has to apply to everything.
Right.
It's just that this in particular has been, the 5 principles that we base our show on are based on the 5 Tai Chi principles.
Yes.
And especially the surrender and all of them really are so key and core to the Christian life.
They are.
we've just found it fascinating. And then throw in there the physical component of it. It so beautifully mirrors these spiritual ideas that we hear about in the Bible. I'm such a visual person. When I see it, I like to think about that.
Yeah, one of the things that has been so fascinating to me about Tai Chi, the physical, just being able to see how much easier things become when you use Tai Chi. I mean, you do have the calm mind, so you're completely focused, you're present in this moment,
Yeah.
not headed somewhere else.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then you are, the kind of the physical aspect of being surrendered is being fully relaxed. And you can tell this, I think we've said this before, but if you just practice picking up your groceries,
Yeah.
like when you pick them up, if you are calm, so you're completely focused on picking up your groceries, you're relaxed, you're letting the weight of your groceries drain all the way down through your joints, down into the ground. You're centered, you're picking them up where they're close to your center, they're not like held out way in front of you or at some weird angle.
Yeah.
You're grounded, so you're actually feeling the earth and trying to let that weight go all the way down into the earth. And you're complete. You're using your entire body to lift the groceries. You will notice a huge difference.
Yeah, it's a totally different feeling. I mean, you're not just lifting it with your arm, you're engaging your whole body. I mean, and there's so many layers of that we want to apply to the Christian life. I mean, we as a person want to be a complete person, completely
Right.
surrendered to God and completely doing his will with every part, not just like our Sunday part of ourselves, but the whole week,
Yes.
and then as a Christian body, many many members, one body, we want to be complete in that way too.
Yeah.
And so it's a great picture, like picking up that grocery bag. It just seems so routine, and you're like, oh, I'd basically just use my hand and my arm maybe, but you're really using your whole body.
Right. Well, you can be. You could
You
just
should
use
be.
your hand and
Sure,
arm, but you
yeah.
should be using your whole body.
It's more efficient. It's more, it's safer,
Right.
less likely to get injured.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I started applying those physical things, I started seeing the spiritual parallel between, these physical principles and the spiritual application of those. And actually, last year, I was reading through Streams in the Desert. I can't remember who it's by, but it's just
Google it.
It's just a book of different quotes that this lady put together, and on actually September 27th,
Wow.
there's this quote from Simpson talking about how he felt younger and stronger at age 70 than at age 30 because he had learned to, quote, live using God's strength. Accomplishing fully twice as much mentally and physically as he ever did in the past, yet with only half the effort. My physical, mental, and spiritual life is like an artesian well, always full and overflowing, speaking, teaching, and traveling by day or by night through sudden and violent changes in weather or climate is of no more effort to me than it is for the wheels of an engine to turn when the pressure of the steam is at full force, or than it is for a pipe to let water run through it.
That's a great analogy. We've talked about here before the unkinking the hose and
Right.
to let the water flow through. And our instructor talks about that all the time.
Right, yeah, I think that's why when I read that, I was like, it just clicked for me. It was like, oh, right, all this stuff that I've been finding mentally, because I've been doing Tai Chi for 6.5 years now, and a lot of those things I had started applying mentally, when I was getting stressed, being like, wait a minute, am I calm?
Mm-hmm.
Am I relaxed? Oh, clearly not. But after I read that quote, it was like it just clicked for me, like, I'm applying these things mentally and physically, but what if I applied them spiritually? What would that look like?
Yeah.
And that has just been such a huge difference.
Yeah, you see that, I think, in the Bible, in some of these heroes of the faith that seem so, their faith seems so strong. And I think they must be doing something like Simpson was talking about there, like, Paul on his missionary journeys, able to be stoned and chased out of
Right.
town, and just he's the one that was a Pharisee before he met Jesus and became a missionary. And so these people in the synagogues that are running him out of town and threatening to kill him in town after town after town are his old colleagues and
Right.
his old Pharisee, his peers. And now his life's in danger. And he's just full of peace and joy, even at bizarre times when he's in
Right.
chains, because he's knows that the power of God is working through him and he just has to be a conduit without
Exactly.
any kinks in it.
Right. And that does not mean, applying the CSCs does not mean that your life gets like all happy go lucky. I
Well, I
mean, there are
didn't.
times.
Yeah, his life wasn't happy go lucky.
Exactly. Well, and like Paul talks about in 2 Corinthians 1:8, he says, "We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers, about the hardships we suffered in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired even of life. Indeed, in our hearts we felt the sentence of death, but this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead." And so, like, they were under pressure far beyond their ability to endure. So I think sometimes people have this idea of Christianity that when you apply things like the Tai Chi principles that we're talking about, the CSCs, as you're applying those things, like, everything's going to magically get better. And things do, I mean, it's amazing how much it feels like they are effortlessly better.
Yeah,
But better does not mean.
the things we're talking about are not the things that make up your circumstance. They're the things that make up you inside
Right,
yourself and the
how
way
you
you see
handle
the
it.
world, the way
Yeah.
you move through the world. Yeah. I think one of the things I love about Tai Chi and why it's so appealing to me is like we were talking about the real world physical application of these principles. And another place that I felt that was outside of a church was in 12-step groups where
Yeah.
they have their 12 steps and surrender is the first one. I mean, they're more explicit. They're talking about surrendering to a higher power and stuff, but it's not Christian.
Right.
The way that community works, starting to, I don't know, there were times where it's just like, why aren't there things like this in the church? And
Yeah.
I'm sure there are, but there's also a lack of it too.
Right.
And there you've got a place that's so focused on the surrender part and the making amends part and the forgiving yourself part and forgiving others.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of the Lord's Prayer right there.
Right.
Thy will not mine be done. Let me forgive the way I've been forgiven. And it's like, here's how you do it. And here's like 20 guys that are going to be like, are you doing it? Let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
do it together.
Uh-huh.
Call me during the week, and that's real life stuff. And it's just incredible. And I feel just like that with Tai Chi too. So when you start
Yeah.
applying to the stuff, it's like, wow, you just start understanding it on a whole new, on a, I think these things get preached in our churches all the time, these
Right.
principles, but then how do you actually do it? That's the part I felt like I was missing. And I feel like this is the grace of God that brought Tai Chi into our lives, brought 12-step into my life.
Right. Right. And Tai Chi is such a great framework. Having the CSCs, they're so simple. You can stop and ask yourself at any point during your day, am I calm? Am I surrendered? Am I centered? Am I connected? Am I complete? You know, takes however many seconds that took for me to say it. Like
Yeah.
it's so easy to just run through them and go, am I? And it's a framework to talk about all these biblical principles in a way that's quick, easy to remember, and easy to apply on a moment to moment basis versus I don't know, sometimes I feel like it's just hard. You can't boil down the Christian walk into like one sentence or anything. So sometimes it's hard to remember what am I supposed to be doing right now? But when you run through the CSCs, it's just an easy,
Yeah.
quick,
And
here's where you should be.
yeah. And that's why we hammer it so much, because it's been so beneficial to us. And like Liz said, it's quick and easy. Hopefully, if you listen to the show long enough, it becomes very memorable. The CSCs
Right.
or the basics.
Mm-hmm. We're so glad you guys were here with us today on this lovely Wednesday.
Hopefully, we answered 100% of your questions about Tai Chi.
Yeah. So send us any questions you have about Tai Chi still, so we can go ahead and answer them on the show, because we have been getting questions, which is great. So
And we're not tired of talking about it yet. We
totally
love it.
Yeah. And hopefully you guys can get something. You don't have to get something every single day, but if you can come back a couple times a week and just get one little thing that helps you grow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and if you could share, if you find something interesting, share the thing with a friend in a conversation, and that helps us. But it would help us as well if you actually shared it, the show.
All right, have an awesome Wednesday. Work on being centered just a little bit more. 1% improvement.
Yep, and don't get too upset about the week. It's almost Monday again. We're halfway there.
Whatever, fine. The weekend will be good too. But yeah, stop and live out of the essence of who you are.
That's right. Thanks for listening today.
We love you guys and we're praying for you.